Hi everybody, my name is Rainer and welcome to Rainierbooks on this June the 3rd of 2021. It's the third day of Pride Month, that's right. And today I want to present you a list of 10 books that you could read under this month and that were all published in 2020 or 2021. I haven't yet read one of them, but I've picked them up and I will read 2 or 3 of them, depending on my mood, depending on other reads that I have. We all have so much to do, but 10 books that I really thought were very interesting in this context. So let's get started with the video and with the books. The first one is You Exist Too Much by Zaina Arafat and was published by Catapult. This is a book about, in the beginning, a 12-year-old American Palestinian girl who is yelled at by a group of men outside the Church of the Nativity. She has exposed her legs in a way that is forbidden in the biblical city. And this judgment of these guys will echo through her adolescence. When the narrator finally admits to her mother that she is queer, her mother says to her, "You exist too much." This is told in vignettes that flash between the US and the Middle East, from New York to Jordan, Lebanon and Palestine. It's the debut novel of Zaina Arafat and traces the protagonist's progress from blushing teen to sought-after DJ and aspiring writer. In Brooklyn, she moves into an apartment with her first serious girlfriend and tries to content herself with her comfortable relationships. But soon her longings, so closely hidden during her teenage years, explode into reckless romantic encounters and obsessions with other people. You Exist Too Much is a captivating story charting 2 of our most intense longings for love and a place to call home. Second book is by an author who was named last year by the National Book Award Foundation in the United States as 5 under 35. They always mention 5 authors under 35 years of age who are regarded as very promising authors. And the second book comes from one of these authors, Chang, and her debut novel, Bestiary, published by One World. One evening, mother tells daughter a story about a tiger spirit who lived in a woman's body. She was called Hugo Po, and she hungered to eat children, especially their toes. Soon afterward, daughter awakes with a tiger tail, and more mysterious events follow. Holes in the backyard spit up letters penned by her grandmother. Visiting aunt arrives with snakes in her belly. A brother tests the possibility of flight. All while, daughter is falling for Ben, a neighborhood girl with strange powers of her own. As the 2 young lovers translate the grandmother's letters, daughter begins to understand that each woman in her family embodies a myth and that she will have to bring her family's secrets to light in order to change their destiny. This is with a poetic voice and crackling electricity. Ming Chang is an explosive young writer who combines the wit and fabulism of Helen Oyeyemi with the subversive storytelling of Maxine Hong Kingston. Bestiary is a novel of migration, queer lineages, and girlhood. We stay on the lesbian side of literature. The next one is a book about 3 generations of African women, of Nigerian women. This is Butter, Honey, Pig Bread by Francesca Ekwuyasi, published by Arsenal Pulp Press. Spanning 3 continents, Butter, Honey, Pig Bread tells the interconnected stories of 3 Nigerian women. Kamberinachi and her twin daughters Kehinda and Taye. Kamberinachi believes that she is an Ogbanye or an Abiko, a non-human spirit that plagues a family with misfortune by being born and then dying in childhood to cause a human mother misery. She has made the unnatural choice of staying alive to love her human family but lives in fear of the consequences of her decisions. So this is a family story. It starts in Lagos in Nigeria, but it goes over to Canada, and that's also where the author Francesca Ekwuyasi is living nowadays. Butter, Honey, Pig Bread is her novel. Number 4 is The Magic Fish by Trung Le Nguyen, published by Random House. In this gorgeous debut novel that Entertainment Weekly calls astounding, fairy tales are the best way one boy can communicate with his Vietnamese immigrant parents. But how will he find the words to tell them that he's gay? A powerful read to celebrate Pride Month about family, identity, and the enduring magic of stories. Tien and his mother may come from different cultures. She's an immigrant from Vietnam, still struggling with English. He's been raised in America, but through the fairy tales he checks out from the local library, those differences are erased. But as much as Tien's mother's English continues to improve as he reads her tales of love, loss, and travel across distant shores, there's one conversation that still eludes him: how to come out to her and his father. Is there even a way to explain what he's going through in Vietnamese? And without a way to reveal his hidden self, how would his parents ever accept him? This beautifully illustrated graphic novel speaks to the complexity of family and how stories can bring us together even when we don't know the words. Reminds a little bit of the situation of Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous that was published 2 years ago, and was one of the most successful books of the last years in literary fiction in America. Another Vietnamese story, but this time as a graphic novel, which I think is a very interesting way of storytelling. Number 5, Finna by Nino Cipri, published by Tordotcom. Nino Cipri's Finna is a rambunctious, touching story that blends all the horrors that the multiverse has to offer with the everyday awfulness of low-wage work. It explores queer relationships and queer feelings, capitalism and accountability, labor and love, all with a bouncing sense of humor and a commitment strange. When an elderly customer at a Swedish big-box furniture store, but not that one, slips through a portal to another dimension, it's up to 2 minimum wage employees to track her across the multiverse and protect their company's bottom line. Multidimensional swashbuckling would be hard enough, but those 2 unfortunate souls broke up a week ago. To find the missing granny, Ava and Jules will brave carnivorous furniture, swarms of identical furniture, spokespeople, and the deep resentment simmering between them. Can friendship blossom from the ashes of their relationship? In infinite dimensions, all things are possible. Number 6 on this list is The 30 Names of Night by Zeyn Youkhadar, published by Atria Books. 5 years after a suspicious fire killed his ornithologist mother, a closeted Syrian-American trans boy sheds his birth name and searches for a new one. He has been unable to paint since his mother's ghost has begun to visit him each evening. As his grandmother's sole caretaker, he spends his days cooped up in their apartment, avoiding his neighborhood. Majid, his estranged sister, and even his best friend, who also happens to be his longtime crush. The only time he feels truly free is when he slips out at night to paint murals on buildings in the once thriving Manhattan neighborhood known as Little Syria. One night he enters the abandoned community house and finds the tattered journal of a Syrian-American artist named Layla Z, who dedicated her career to painting the birds of North America. She famously and mysteriously disappeared more than 60 years before, but her journal contains proof that both his mother and Layla Z encountered the same rare bird before their deaths. In fact, Layla Z's past is intimately tied to his mother's and his grandmother's in ways he never could have expected. Even more surprising, Layla Z's story reveals the histories of queer and transgender people within his own community that he never knew. Realizing that he isn't and has never been alone, he has the courage to officially claim a new name, Nadir, an Arabic name meaning rare. As unprecedented numbers of birds are mysteriously drawn to the New York City skies, Nadir enlists the help of his family and friends to unravel what happened to Layla Z and the rare bird his mother died trying to save. Following his mother's ghosts, he uncovers the silences kept in the name of survival by his own community, his own family, and within himself, and discovers the family was there all along. Featuring Zeyn Youkhadar's signature magical and heart-wrenching storytelling, The 30 Names of Night is a timely exploration of how we all search for and ultimately embrace who we are. It's a lot of magical realism to these books, right? Number 7, Fairest by Meredith Talusan, published by Viking. Fairest is a memoir about a precocious boy with albinism, a son-child from a rural Philippine village, who would grow up to become a woman in America. Coping with a strain of parental neglect and the elusive promise of U.S. citizenship, Talusan found childhood comfort from a devoted grandmother, a grounding force as she was treated by others with special preference for public curiosity. As an immigrant to the United States, Talusan came to be perceived as white. An academic scholarship to Harvard provided access to elite circles of privilege, but required Talusan to navigate through complex spheres of race, class, sexuality, and her place within the gay community. She emerged as an artist and an activist, questioning the boundaries of gender. Talusan realized she did not want to be confined to a prescribed role as a man and transitioned to become a woman, despite the risk of losing a man she deeply loved. Throughout her journey, Talusan shares poignant and powerful episodes of desirability and love that will remind readers of works such as Call Me By Your Name and Giovanni's Room. Her evocative reflections will shift our own perceptions of love, identity, gender, and the fairness of life. Number 8, Mostly Dead Things by Kristen Arnett, published by Tin House Books. What does it take to come back to life? For Jessa Lynn Morton, the question is not an abstract one. In the wake of her father's suicide, Jessa has stepped up to manage his failing taxidermy business while the rest of the Morton family crumbles. Her mother starts sneaking into the taxidermy shop to make provocative animal art while her brother, Milo, withdraws. Anne Bryn, Milo's wife, and the only person Jess has ever been in love with, walks out without a word. It's not until the Mortons reach a tipping point that a string of unexpected incidents begins to open up surprising possibilities and second chances. But will they be enough to salvage his family, to help them, to salvage this family, to help them find their way back to one another? Kristen Arnett's breakout bestseller is a darkly funny family portrait, a peculiar big-hearted look at love and loss and the ways we live through them together. Number 9, The Inheritance by Matthew Lopez and published by Faber and Faber. Inspired by E.M. Forster's novel Howard's End and set in New York 3 decades after the height of the AIDS epidemic, The Inheritance wrestles with what it means to be a gay man today, exploring relationships and connections across age and social class and asking what one generation's responsibilities may be to the next. Matthew Lopez's The Inheritance premiered at the Young Vic Theatre in London in 2018 before transferring to the West End's Noel Coward Theatre. It premiered on Broadway at the Ethel Barrymore Theatre in 2019, and this edition includes revisions made for the Broadway production. So number 9 is a play. And number 10, and that's the final book on 10 books you might read during Pride Month, Our Work is Everywhere by Syan Rose, published by Arsenal Pulp Press. Over the past 10 years, we have witnessed the rise of queer and trans communities that have defied and challenged those who have historically opposed them. Through bold, symbolic imagery and surrealist overlapping landscapes, queer illustrator and curator Syan Rose shines a light on the faces and voices of these diverse, amorphous, messy, real and imagined queer and trans communities. In their own words, queer and trans organizers, artists, healers, comrades and leaders speak honestly and authentically about their own experiences with power, love, pain, and magic to create a textured and nuanced portrait of queer and trans realities in America. The many themes include Black Thumb mental health, Pacific Islander authorship, fat queer performance art, disability in healthcare practice, sex worker activism, and much more. Accompanying the narratives are Rose's startling and sinuous images that brings these leaders' words to visual life. Our Work is Everywhere is a graphic, non-fiction book that underscores the brilliance and passion of queer and trans resistance. These are the 10 books for Pride Month. I'm going to read like 2 or 3 of them over the course of the next year, because I don't read books concerning one topic only in a month, but I will sort of spread them out over a year. And I won't get them all, I'm sure of that, because I'm far away from the English-speaking bookshops, but from the English bookshops or the American bookshops. But I will read 2 or 3 of them, and I hope that you are going to read 1, 2, or 3 of them and tell me all about it in the comments down below, and even what you are reading during Pride Month. I think the last book is that I mentioned here, which is nonfiction by Syan Rose. Our Work is Everywhere by Arsenal Pulp Press. Sounds to me like one of the most interesting books, because it sort of gathers the strength and power and energy of queer and trans resistance against all the negative influences and the hate and bigotry of the world that tries to succumb them, tries to suffocate them. And that's what Pride Month is for. It's about being proud and being solidaric with our brothers and sisters who are queer people, who are members of our communities, who are a part of us, and we are a part of them. And that's what we should show during this month, because there are many countries, not even only in our countries, where there's still in the United States, where there's still in Germany and in Sweden, where there's still aggression and violence against by homophobic people against queer and trans people. There are countries in this world where even the slightest sign of homosexuality or trans is forbidden by law, and where people are being put to prison and even killed for the sake of some moral that is only rooted in bad education. So let's do this. Let's read something. Let's read one of these books, or a different book, a beautiful book. Let's read 1 title or 2 titles. You don't have to read 10 titles. As I said, I'm not going to read them all this month, but I'm going to pick up 1 or 2 or 3 of them over the course of the next year, because we should read queer and trans literature. It enlightens us, and it gives us a larger perspective of the world, and it gives us understanding. And that's all reading is about, to give us more sort of insight into other people's lives and into their problems and into their hopes and dreams. And these are my words for June the 3rd. And I wish that every one of you stays safe, that you wear a mask. This is not over yet. We know it. We have to be resilient against the pandemic and against haters. Bye-bye.